Every day here at Driveline, we have new athletes walk through our doors and tell us a different version of the same story. They're following a throwing program, they're hitting the weight room, and doing all the things they believe they should be doing, but lately they've reached a point where it feels like things just aren't working like they used to. They're not putting on the weight they think they should be, and the velocity gains have stalled out. In some cases, they seem to be actually getting worse. 9 times out of 10, when we sit down with these athletes and go through their training habits in detail, the cause of their plateau problem becomes clear. They are prioritizing the wrong things and forgetting about the fundamentals. They may be in the weight room or throwing the plyos religiously, but they're only getting 6 hours of sleep per night, and they're not eating enough. Or their throwing workload is too aggressive because they put too much effort into their recovery days. This is a prioritization problem, and if you're seeing plateaus in your training, there's a very real chance that this is the culprit. So how do you solve it? You can look to the pitching hierarchy of needs for guidance. The pitching hierarchy of needs is similar to Maslow's hierarchy, which you may remember if you were paying attention in psychology class. Maslow's hierarchy explains that at the most fundamental level, we need food, water, air, shelter, and other basic needs in order to survive. Once we've met those needs, we can move up the hierarchy and focus on higher level needs like safety, love, status, and at the top, self-actualization. In this same way, the pitching hierarchy of needs is a guide to help you make sure that you're meeting your most fundamental development needs first before jumping up the pyramid to focus on things that can still be valuable, but only after your most basic needs are being met. In this video, we'll unpack each level of the pitching hierarchy of needs through the lens of the most common athletes we see. Let's break it down, starting with the first one, which is high performance training.
Are you a high school or college pitcher who is struggling to get better or see results? You likely need to get in the weight room and get bigger, stronger, and more explosive to take the next step in your development. High performance training, as it pertains to pitchers, is most focused on body weight, force production, and power. At Driveline, you will go through an extensive strength assessment to test all 3 of these metrics. Force production and power are tested to establish a foundation of where the athlete is, and then subsequently trained to increase more refined, visible skills. Once a weakness has been identified within the assessment process, it can be attacked with specific workouts or mobility exercises to improve these areas. By strengthening your critical throwing anatomy, including shoulders, forearms, elbows, etc., you're not only attempting to prevent injury risk, but also improve the ability to absorb and deliver force needed for velocity gains. If you try to put on velocity without the necessary structures in place, you will likely struggle to maintain your gains, stay healthy, or see results. Strength training is the most basic yet effective means of improving performance without overexposing the athlete to risk, making it critical that this type of training is the first in the hierarchy to be accounted for.
Okay, so now you've figured out that if you're 170 pounds and throwing 78 miles per hour, you need to focus on getting stronger and more athletic. The next question to ask yourself is, am I recovering properly? Am I getting 8 to 10 hours of quality sleep per night? Am I fueling my body with the right foods? Am I allowing myself to recover between workouts properly? There are many different ways to track recovery from one day to the next, and Driveline's use of technology in the recovery process has continued to evolve and improve. Armcare.com uses a sensor that uses your strength, fatigue, and recovery data to individualize training and unlock the potential for huge velocity gains. Our pulse throwing sensor also helps athletes track their workload and improves execution of their training programs, keeping you on track with your player development plans. There will be days you are not physically equipped for the workloads you are being asked to complete. Pulse and Armcare.com will allow us to identify when these days occur so that the necessary and appropriate adjustments can be made in the interest of your health and long-term success. A critical piece of recovery is the actual daily execution of the throwing program. At Driveline, a mix of high intensity, medium intensity, and low intensity days are programmed to meet the proper workload. Using Driveline's Pulse and Smart Report system, we are also able to effectively approximate the recommended RPE, arm speeds, and acute workload for an athlete on a given day. Smart Reports allow us to effectively grade the athlete's execution of each throwing day. The athlete receives a report after each day of throwing which states whether their execution is one of 3 colors: red, poor; yellow, near poor; or green, properly executed. Overall, our use of technology and implementation of recovery data into your throwing programs allow for you to have consistent, effective, safe training that helps you grow and build.
All right, so now you're getting stronger and you're recovering well. What's the next area on the hierarchy to focus on optimizing? In reality, mechanics are often misprioritized in this hierarchy of needs. At Driveline, Nearly every athlete begins their training with a biomechanical assessment completed along with their strength assessment. In the assessment, your mechanics will be quantified via a series of measurements across various points of their motion. The assessment is then transcribed into a report with percentile rankings consisting of 6 groups: arm action, center of gravity velocities, lead leg block, rotational velocities, arm rotational velocities, and hip-shoulder separation. These are graded and compared by means of percentile ranking to all other athletes who have been assessed in our motion capture lab.
So let's check out your arm action, right? So the overall score here is the 20th percentile.
Now that you have built up the necessary strength to gain velocity and have been assessed to attack weaknesses in your mechanics, it is important that you also train smart. So how can you improve and gain as much velocity as possible while staying healthy? To better outline what such a balance looks like, we can use the economic concept of expected utility. With this concept, we can account for variables like pitching velocity gained, strength gained, the intrinsic risk of injury, the decision-based risk of injury, and additional general training costs such as time, money, and summarize them to outline the manner in which the execution of the hierarchy of training may affect an athlete's probable gains or losses. Throwing a baseball at high velocities creates a level of risk for the athlete participating, as we can see by the injury levels rising. We can mitigate risk by using recovery technologies and creating solid training programs, but we will never be able to completely eliminate the possibility of injury. This is because to be a good pitcher at a high level, one will likely be required to throw the baseball quite hard, placing significant stress on the body. We are not in the business of eliminating risk. That is simply not possible if you're trying to push the limits of human performance. But what we can do, and what we invest a ton of resources into, is provide you with a framework on how to maximally improve while still focusing on your health. Not all velocity gains are created equal, and many factors play a part in assessing athletes. Let's say you and your teammate both gain the same amount of velocity, but you are recovering, eating, and sleeping properly while your teammate isn't. You will better mitigate your risk of injury, therefore increasing the probable utility of your training. Longevity, sustainability, and applicability of training are all factors worth consideration in estimating the gained utility of an athlete. This is why using technology to assess recovery is helpful for trainers at Driveline to assess the condition of the athlete and help to mold programming in a way that creates sustainable, healthy performance. It is, in all honesty, quite rare that an athlete, especially a young athlete, would walk through the doors at Driveline and immediately begin directly training mechanics or velocity, because these are upper sections of training in the hierarchy and rely on the athlete being proficient in many other areas first. This is the purpose of the hierarchy, however, to organize structure and effectively sequence the steps of training necessary for each individual athlete.
The pitching hierarchy of needs provides a structured and methodical approach to achieving sustainable velocity gains and overall pitching performance. By prioritizing high-performance training, recovery, and program execution before diving into mechanics and on-field performance, athletes can build a solid foundation that supports long-term success.
As you embark on your journey to throw harder and perform better, approach your training systematically. Focus on building strength and power, prioritize recovery, and refine your mechanics based on data-driven insights. By following the pitching hierarchy of needs, you'll set yourself up for sustainable improvements and on-field success.
So start from the ground up, be patient, and trust the process. Your dedication and commitment to each level of the hierarchy will pay off, helping you reach your full potential as a pitcher.